So proportionately, the impact's going to be higher because they're small, and if they're losing somebody really key, you've got a massive detrimental impact on their business to have that person walk out. So for me, tip number one is really identify who the key people are in your business.
Welcome to the Business Behind Your Business, conversations to help your business grow and thrive. Hi, I'm Paul Sweeney, founder of Pretium Solutions, Chartered Accountants and Certified Business Advisors, hosting the Business Behind Your Business. Welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business, and it's an exciting time. We are moving forward. There's a lot of optimism everywhere, a lot of excitement getting back to business, whether you're in Sydney or New South Wales or Australia or around the globe. There is an excitement about moving forward with your business, and that brings a whole host of challenges. And one that's come to mind is this, what we're now calling or referring to as the Great Resignation. If you're hearing that for the first time, you might be wondering, what is that all about? And certainly the first time I heard it, I was a bit confused. But I think we have the right person at hand to answer our questions. So we've got Paul Cripps from PK People Solutions back to explain to us what is the Great Resignation and why it matters for our business. So welcome back, Paul.
Hello, thank you, Paul, and thank you for having me back on the Business Behind Your Business podcast. Good to be back and talking with you again. And yes, you're absolutely right, Paul. You know, what is this Great Resignation Race, and what does it actually mean? It certainly first came to my attention probably around about the middle of the year, and certainly it's a phenomenon that was hitting the US and the UK, and really an acceleration of people looking to go into new opportunities and perhaps demanding some different things as well. So that's the sort of thing which we're going to go through in a little bit of detail, and also say, okay, is this a problem for Australia, or are we going to be exempt from this?
And it's going to be a challenge because for a business, if you're trying to retain your existing talent, your existing employees, who are, I guess, fundamental and essential for your business, it's going to be a challenge. And look, we are seeing a lot of people starting businesses, are seeing it as an opportunity to start businesses during this time, whether they be on the side or whether it's a time to reflect and say, well, hang on, I really wanted to start the business. Now is the time to do it. So we've also got that sort of, I guess, drain on talent. So managing talent is going to be essential. And why is this Great Resignation debate or race going to be such a big issue?
Yes, and I think you're unfortunately. I think probably it's less of a debate and more of a race, to be honest. I think it's coming, and I think to a certain extent, I think it's already, in my view, personal view, I think it's already hitting our shores already. I think it's already here, and I think a lot of it is down to, as you say, there's people that are doing different things. People that, if you say, there's been acceleration of people looking to start up businesses. Those people are probably exiting, full-time, jobs, whether it be in other SMEs or in corporates. And there is some more gaps to fill. And if you sort of couple that with the impact the pandemic had in terms of close and not being able to move talent as easy from a global perspective, I'd say not so easy, probably in some cases almost impossible. It's caused a number of issues, and it's predicted from some of the research that I've read to be hitting Australia the hardest, probably by about March next year. I think that's probably, I think my view on it is that sitting on your hands and waiting until March next year isn't the right thing to do. I think it's probably going to be with us a little bit sooner than that. We might actually be helped in Australia because of the way businesses tend to sometimes slow down around the Christmas-January period. That may help slow us down a bit. But I certainly think now is the time to act because, some of the reports that have come out have talked around somewhere between 25 and 50% of people actively looking to exit their roles. And that maybe is going to opportunities or the sort of situation you described, Paul, where people are potentially starting up their own businesses.
Sorry, Paul, can you repeat that percentage? Because that seems quite high. I'm just
it is high. And sorry, it wasn't 14, it was 40. It's between 25 and 40%. And that's when you couple in terms of, look, you think about and it's always difficult to work out what average turnover is in a lot of businesses, but I'd say probably a healthy turnover would often be something like a single digit in a business. Suddenly that number starts to ring a few alarm bells, particularly when you think about what turnover costs, and I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail. But if we can sort of and I could talk into a lot of detail, but I won't today, is that the cost of turnover is sometimes predicted to be. I mean, I usually use the figure of 1 times an annual salary. I mean, depending on what research you use, sometimes people say it's a lot higher than that. But certainly, it's not turnover. Employee turnover is not a small cost in terms of trying to factor in things like lost opportunity, the cost of replacing and not having someone in that role. So yes, 25 to 40% is where the gauge of where a lot of researchers are saying, and this research has come out of various parts of the world as it's hit the US and the UK, and now we've got I think the recent report was by Gartner that came out that was talking about how this will impact Australia in the coming months.
So I don't want to dwell too much on the figures, but let's put that into actual physical bodies or physical people. So if we're saying 25 to 40%, we're looking at 1 out of every 3 employees in your business is likely to resign, to either to change jobs or to start another opportunity,
or at least like to be looking. Whether they will, it's another thing, but it's still very high. It's still a number. Even if say I am going to delve into the numbers. I shouldn't do this with somebody that's at the council. But anyway, so you talk about if you take that figure, say somewhere in between, say a third. Even if only half of those people leave, you're still looking at what are you still looking at? Something like do the maths on me here, Paul, help me out. 1/6 of people. So it's still a decent number of people that can leave. Look, it could be higher than that. So there's certainly a risk there, and I think the important thing really is to be aware of it and to think about putting some strategies in place sooner rather than later, so businesses aren't caught by surprise.
And look, there's certainly other industries at the moment. We're talking with Harry Nathu recently about the hospitality industry and the absolute shortage of availability and also people willing to work in that field at the moment. So that hospitality, tourism, not so much tourism at the moment, but hospitality particularly is really struggling for, I guess, skilled workers to be able to fill those roles. And I know in a lot of the farming, I guess the fruit picking, those industries have really been impacted by the lack of labour available during the recent crisis.
Absolutely. Another example I heard there I was talking to somebody in the trades of the week, and just even in terms of people they get in to do labouring, just those, they just can't get the people that they've been able to get all the time they've been in business. So, there's a lot of examples there of that there being some shortages, but I think it's fair to say that this is not necessarily industry specific. This is going to be hitting a number of different types of businesses. So I think that it's not one where it's a case of it's just going to be funneled to certain sectors. This is something that could impact a lot. And I guess I'm already seeing it as well in terms of I've got one client that's got offices in the US and the UK, and not so much in the UK because I think they've had some good strategies to try and minimise turnover. But certainly in the US, that's been something of an issue, and even in the UK, in Australia, I've got clients here that are really struggling to get good people, across a wide variety of industries.
And look, I think we're starting to open up on this reason for why it's such a big concern for businesses, in that we've just come through, I guess really 2 years of COVID affected business, where businesses have really struggled. They're really looking to I guess regain some momentum, some sales, some consistency in terms of revenue. And to have the issue of losing key employees at this time will really have an impact on the ability to, I guess, recover strongly following the COVID crisis that we've been through. And let's not ignore that prior to that COVID crisis, particularly in New South Wales, we had drought, we had bushfires, we had floods. We've had a lot of things impacting businesses over the last three to 4 years, or even longer. And this is probably another thing that is going to, or I guess the next big issue in line for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I think it is, you're absolutely right. It is, the number of things that have happened pre-pandemic. And I think it's, this is one, I think, to think about the fact that this is certain things that we couldn't predict. This is something that's being predicted. So, I think the advantage of this one is that we sort of have some idea from what we've seen elsewhere in the world about how this might play out. And I think to a certain extent that the benefit we have in Australia is that, we've seen this has been an issue elsewhere. And so how about we how about we do something about it and actually try and put some things in place to try and do whatever we can to hold on to our best people. And that's not going to be something that's going to work all the time. Don't get me wrong. But I think that waiting for the problem to happen is not a strategy that I would recommend.
Yeah, we've said this a lot. It's not going to happen to me, or I'll wait and see what's going to happen before I decide what I'm going to do. I think we've seen enough. As you said, we've seen it happening globally, particularly the US and the UK. And there is the trend that Australian markets do tend to follow. So we've got, a window of opportunity here to get our systems, our processes, or our relationships with our employees in place now. So if we're predicting March, is 6 months lead time enough time to put in place a strategy?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, and I would suggest doing it a lot quicker than that, because as I say, I think that I think March is quite conservative. I can see possibly that it's going to. I already think that it is hitting some businesses already anyway. We just haven't named it as such as yet. So I think that that it's never too late to start to put something in place, unless you're unfortunate enough to have suffered some horrendous turnover where you think it can't get any worse. But I think it's also about making sure that the right strategies are put in place as well, and not to overreact and think that perhaps monetary rewards are the only thing that's going to solve the problem, because people are very different. Different things motivate different people. So the important message that I like to give is that if you really understand your people, take time to do that and put something in place that's actually going to have some value. The idea being is, if you're going to invest something, that you're getting a return on your investment, which in this case is simply hold on to your best people. And
you mentioned quite clearly that the monetary reward is not necessarily the key driver for employee engagement anymore. And again, the discussion with Harry Nathu, when we sort of investigated, what is the future of work all about? What's it going to look like? But also, what are the skills that employers need to adopt to manage employees through that situation, moving into, I guess, the future of work, whatever that's going to look like. There's some new skills that are required, and it's not a simple case of upping salaries to retain.
No, and I think to be honest, I think it often boils down to culture. I think businesses with the right culture, that's often seen. And all right, salary is a hygiene factor. A business can't afford to, drastically underpay people and have a good culture and retain their best people. But I think more and more that's have understanding what the culture is and having a culture in place that is understood, and one that's clearly articulated and it's consistent is important. And it's interesting, because it's certainly some of the work that I come across in the last few months, has been businesses that are looking to, I hate to use the term, but do something like a culture audit, because it itself sounds like a strange sort of like concept in something that you'd argue is difficult to measure. But I think the positive side there is that more and more boards are thinking, well, hang on a second, this is something we need to focus on.
And I think really, if we go back to those numbers, if we talk 1 in 3 or 1 in 6, it's not really a situation just for bigger businesses. I think our small and medium businesses are really at risk here. And I think the impact of losing a key employee when you do have a small team is probably higher, or the impact is probably higher proportionally. Like in a large organization, if you lose one key person, you can generally got the resources to fill that gap quickly, or put in place some strategies, or you may have systems designed around it. But your typical small, medium business owner doesn't have those strategies and systems in place necessarily. So what do you have in mind? What advice can you give us? Do you have any tips for us, Paul?
I do. I'm going to give you Paul's 5 hot tips for acting now to avoid the Great Resignation Race, and here's one I prepared earlier. So, and I think that we've touched on some of this already, but I think maybe if that's all right, Paul, maybe we'll go into these what I think probably are 5 areas, but we can always go into some of them into a little bit more detail as well. But I think the first thing, and as you quite say, Paul, there are some, for a small to medium-sized business, there are going to be a much bigger impact. So proportionately, the impact's going to be higher because they're small, and if they're losing somebody really key, it could have a massive detrimental impact on their business. to have that person walk out. So for me, tip number one is really identify who the key people are in your business, and even I'd say to be as make a list about who's going to have the biggest impact on your business if that person left. Now, I think, to me, that's a simple thing to do. I've worked in, as you have worked in larger businesses that have done things like 9-box grids and things like that, and all that has its place that works in a bigger business. But I think certainly for a small to medium-sized business, is probably just identifying the key people is key. And that might not necessarily be all the people that are the most senior people. There could be people dotted around in different places of that business that are the key. So I think identifying them and understand who they are, and I mean, if in one way, a business may even want to force rank people as well, and there might be something they do very, very privately. But certainly, I think it's an exercise, worth following.
Mm-hmm. And is there any recommended way of doing this? Because I think, look, our small medium business don't necessarily have good systems in place when it comes to employee management. So, what do you suggest we do? And I think this might come into tip number 2 that you've got. How do we go about this idea of identifying people that are key?
Look, I think it's important, first of all, in terms of identifying. I think that ultimately the business owner is going to have to make their own decision in terms of who are the key people. And the way I would do it in terms of, okay, so that person walked out. It's almost a case of going, in a business that's relatively small, say it might be like up to sort of 10, 15 people. It's like, okay, so this person, like, what sort of impact might have to go through each one and actually think, okay, who would have the biggest impact if they left the business? And that might be the right place to start. And then if they've got that, as I say, false ranking probably is a good way to go about it. And then go to the top of the list. Who is the person that's number one on the list? If they left the business, that I'd be in a lot of trouble. And that's where, thank you for the segue, Paul. I go into tip number 2. And I would suggest always using a structured approach, to actually retain, your most valuable employees. And by that, I mean understanding in terms of what motivates them, what motivated them to join the organization, what motivates them to stay in the organization. Now, look, there are various ways you can do that. I have a structured, tool that I'm licensed to use that I use with my clients, but there are obviously other options out there that people can follow in terms of, okay, so they can think about that concept in terms of, what they understand to be from their knowledge of that person about, what gets them to, stay in the organization, what motivates them. Look, I mean, to be honest, it's a case of I find using a tool to help there can be helpful. But other than that, if it's really just about having an understanding about what are the key motivators of that person in terms of what makes them stay.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the other thing that's really come out in this, I guess, the working from home, the new working from home environment is things are being done differently.
Yeah.
And how we approach work is different. So are there alternatives that we can look at, or should we be looking at alternatives rather than saying, well, hey, I need this person to do X, Y, Z, but really they can do ABC much better? Should we be looking at those aspects as well?
Look, I'm probably going to talk about 3 and 4 together, if that's okay, Paul. I think certainly challenging what's happened in the past is good. I think just to be a little bit cautious, to get a bit of clarity to what you said. If you're actually talking about changing somebody's role, you just need to be careful you don't get caught out of changes somebody's role, and you don't want to get caught out that you've actually substantially changed somebody's role so their previous role didn't exist. You don't want to get into that situation, but certainly it's important to challenge the norms. So and challenge in terms of what someone does, and also how they do it and where they do it as well. More and more, one of the things that we touched on earlier is, people are looking for different options. People are looking for different ways of working, when they work, where they work. And, now is the time out there to be open to these suggestions, because, as I say, the opposite is going to be, if for businesses that aren't showing some form of flexibility in how their people work going forward, are going to be the people that suffer. Because guess what? There's a lot of businesses out there that are being very open to say, come work with us. You can work from home, whatever percentage of the time, sometimes 100% of the time. And those kind of opportunities are becoming more and more attractive. So I think, thinking about being open to various alternatives, I think is something which I would always encourage a business to do in this time. And also, as you say, remote working, Sometimes we talk about a hybrid sort of model going forward where there'll be a mixture of remote working and working from home, which I'll be honest with you, I think is a very smart strategy in the current environment anyway. Now we've just, in New South Wales now just opened up because once again, if we're going to learn from what's happened elsewhere in the globe, and I've heard about examples, UK, US and South Africa, where, opening up and all of a sudden having everybody back in the office as a big bang or back in the workplace has been a problem because, that's been when the virus has started to come in, then it's, in some cases, wiped out entire teams, and I have one example where it wiped out an entire management team. So I think having some form of thought to doing things a little bit differently, going forward is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of we've talked about retaining your key employees, but you sort of just touched on briefly there how you make your business more attractive to a new employee.
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, and I think that and I think the good thing about retention strategies, I think retention strategies almost in some ways go hand in hand with attraction strategies as well. And so a lot of things that you put in place for retaining will work equally as well when it comes to getting people into your business as well. So, and that's almost like the hidden value, really, in a way, is that you can look at the cost of employee turnover and you work out what you can spend on your retention strategies, and you can measure that in terms of if you're not losing people. But what's more difficult to measure is attracting people in. But by putting those things in place, you're absolutely spot on, Paul. That will certainly help with attracting people going forward. The one other thing I was just going to mention on remote working as well, the other thing I'd suggest as well is actually understanding people. Work with a few clients that look to use psychometrics on this, and whether that's to understand how they will work remotely, what is their personality like to work and interact with us when they're working remotely. Those sort of things can be quite useful as well. And look, a small to medium-sized business also shouldn't be put off by the expense of that as well. I've certainly had businesses of just 2 or 3 people that have invested in those tools, so that they're not tools that are unaffordable to a small business, and it can certainly help in some cases retain somebody, but also it helps with getting the right person in as well.
So just to clarify, that the psychometric tools, there's a range of different ones, but the purpose of those is to identify how people work the best, or what matters the most?
So look, and I guess the benefit of me being independent is I get to see a range of different tools from a range of different providers. So, and I use a blend. And from my perspective, certainly I find that there's a number out there that will look into how people will work in a remote environment. And there's one particular favorite tool I've got, which I think is the best one that I've seen, that I suggest to clients that want some help there. And equally, sometimes, I've got clients that actually want to understand the mix in their team, and look, there's something different that I will use there to help understand the team interactions, and also and I guess the key thing is with this particular client, he's looking to make sure he's built this small team that's close knit. He's started off and got an understanding of personalities. He doesn't want to change it when he adds new people in, and wants the existing team to work well together to retain them. So they can have multiple uses. I think always the key thing though is knowing when to use them, and also making sure they're not used as an excuse, because that's where that's the danger signs. I takes me back to some horror stories I've heard in the past that when they've been misused, but if they're used well, they can be very valuable.
Right. So when you say just used as an excuse, what do you mean by that?
The classic one, and I learned this back in, I think, 1996, Paul. So this is going back a long time ago. This was in the UK with a provider at the time, and it was a case of whatever you do, be careful of people that ever mention anything along the lines of somebody's failed a personality test, particularly if they're being looked at for some cases it might be an internal role move. It could be used externally as well. And I think sometimes there can be people can hide behind them. Any kind of psychometric, whether it be for developmental purposes, for retention purposes, is a tool. It is a tool to use as part of an overall process. They shouldn't ever be used as telling 100% of the picture. They're very accurate from my experience. It's very rare that I've ever got somebody that's completed one that said, that's just nothing like me at all. I think over the years with all sorts of different tools, I've managed to convert a few skeptics. So they really, but they should always be used in the correct manner is my advice.
Oh, good advice there, Paul. So how do we know that the 4 tips that you've given us so far are actually being effective in our retention strategy?
Look, I think a lot of it is, I think a lot of things I've spoken about here are things that have always existed. So if I think about, in the corporate world, people always look at to monitor their top performers and their talent, and look to put some strategies in place. So these really aren't. There's nothing here, and I guess probably I'll talk about the first couple of tips. There's nothing new here. I think that these are strategies that have worked in different scenarios. They're just sometimes things that in the past probably haven't been used as frequently in small to medium sized businesses. And I think that if we think about challenging the norms, remote working, obviously this is something that's been accelerated. I think that even pre-pandemic, working from home and working remotely had some traction, but it's accelerated massively in the last 18 months, and I think was always going to do so. So some of this has been coming for a while, and it's probably just been accelerated by the pandemic. So look, from my experience, these are things that have worked in different businesses over a period of time.
And I think the observation I've made with a lot of the technologies around and a lot of the processes, in the past, we viewed them as only the domain of the large corporates.
Correct.
But
that's right. Yeah.
The tool is equally, or the tools and the analysis and the benefits are equally useful to a small, medium business. Absolutely. The difference we've seen now is they've become more accessible and potentially more affordable, or I guess in some ways the affordability has not been the issue, it's the accessibility of the programs. So there's no excuse really for businesses not getting access to those tools to manage their employees.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, Paul, because and the thing is, at the end of the day, it's a business may see it as a bit of if they see it as a grudge spend, the alternative of losing somebody is a much bigger expense, massively. I should have done some numbers on that one, but certainly, that the spend on trying to put something in place to retain somebody is going to be a small fraction of the cost, versus actually losing somebody that's key in the business.
Yeah, but there's a lot of cost of losing and replacing an employee, particularly in a key role. You've got some immediate ones in terms of recruitment costs, the lost time while you're training them in their new role, and the lost time of other people employing that you've employed to train them in the role, and I guess the lack of momentum. Yeah, particularly around sales and
absolutely right. And that's one sometimes people forget in terms of not having somebody in the role. If the role's vacant for a time, what's the lost opportunity in terms of sales, and that can sometimes really hurt a business.
Mm-hmm. Great. So, Paul, let's just recap our conversation. Sure. So we've identified that it is the Great Resignation Race. There's no debate about it.
No debate, unfortunately. I'm going to correct you there, Paul. It's definitely a race. It's a race to warranty best people.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that's going to affect every business. It's not the domain of the large corporates. It is there for every business. People have become more mobile. We've had this, I use this word quite a bit, that COVID has been a catalyst for change. In so many ways, and people looking to change the career they're in, or the work environment they're in, or even whether they are employed or running their own business now. So there is a definite change happening, and people are more prepared to change their circumstances.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, no, without a doubt. No, you're absolutely spot on. I just realised I didn't get to point number 5, Paul. Do you mind if I just chip in with that one now?
Well, we did talk about it. We talked about it
earlier in our conversation, didn't we? Actually, so sorry. So it's just a case of, because we did, and that's down to culture. And I think that and we just sort of talked about it earlier before we went through the top 5. And that my view is that having a good culture in the business is key to retention. You can have all the other hygiene factors in place, but a good culture can be the undoing. So I think understanding, what makes your culture, a good culture, and making sure that you actually keep that good culture. And I use the expressions like, it's about, if you've got a good culture, how about working on making it a great culture? That can be a real accelerator for a business. And I think it's something that's, as time goes on, is being valued a lot higher than would have been the case a few years ago.
Yeah, certainly. And when we say culture, we're not just talking about table tennis tables and
no, that's right. And it can be part of it, correct. We're not talking about all the warm. We're talking about all the warm and fuzzy stuff. Obviously, it's very much sometimes about behaviour and trust in the business as well. Some of the many elements that make up a good culture.
Mm-hmm. So, it is something that's real. It is going to happen. We're seeing it happen in other countries. It's only a matter of time. And as you said, the amount of time we have may actually be shorter than what people are projecting. So we do need to, and there is a real cost if we don't act.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think without doubt, the key message I give away is let's not wait. The time to act is sooner rather than later. And as you've said already, Paul, this is something which is not just a domain of large business and large corporates. This could impact any small to medium sized business as well. And the cost of not acting could be very high.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and thanks for sharing your top tips of how we can approach the Great Resignation Race and prepare for it. So we're going to put a link to your top tips in the show notes for people to access, and we're also going to put your contact details in there for them to contact you to find how they can get help with preparing their business for this upcoming event that's going to happen.
That's excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Paul.
Not a problem. Paul, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And it's been great again, and look forward to having you back in the future as well. And encourage people to reach out to Paul through PK People Solutions to find out more about how they can, improve the culture of their business and make it one which is a strong culture of retaining key employees as well. So thanks again for listening, and we look forward to you joining us on future episodes of The Business Behind Your Business. Thanks for listening. Do you have a question you'd like our team of experts to answer? If you do, send your question to podcast@thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. To hear more from The Business Behind Your Business, don't forget to subscribe using your favourite podcast player. Or you can visit the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website.